So the following exercises are going to be included in our basic dynamic warm-up. The first are quadruped hip circles. You start with your hands underneath your shoulders and your knees underneath your hips. You want to maintain a nice neutral spine, so if there were a broomstick on your back, it would touch your tailbone, your upper back, and the back of your head. Lift your knee, draw small circles right above the ground in one direction. Once you get the required number of reps, you'll switch directions. That's a quadruped hip circle. The second is a fire hydrant. Assume the same position, hands underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips, and you're going to lift your knee to the side. It's really important here that you try to keep your pelvis as steady as possible. You don't want to whip it to the side, because then not only are you not using the correct muscle groups, but you're also getting your mobility from your spine instead of your hip. The third exercise is a bird dog. Again, you start in the quadruped position, hands underneath the shoulders and knees underneath the hips. You're going to lift opposite arm, opposite leg, hold it for a moment, lead with the heel of your leg. So you don't want to lead with a toe, you want to lead with the heel. There are a couple different variations here. If that's too difficult, you might just lift your arm or your leg and alternate. So you can lift arm, arm, leg, leg. Again, it's really important to maintain that neutral spine position and not sag. A lot of people will thrust their foot up too high and they'll sag in the middle. The bird dog is a core stability exercise. So you want to stay really stable in your middle. Next is half kneeling internal rotation. So you're going to get in the half kneeling position. You want your foot in line with your hip and your knee in line with your hip, and you want to be as square as possible. It can be really hard to get square on your own, so you might want someone to kind of help you a little bit. You don't want to be rocked forward, hanging on your hip. Okay, you want to be, again, stabilizing with your core. So you're here, set up nice and tall, hands go behind the head, and you're going to rotate towards the front knee. It's really important not to try to avoid getting your mobility from your lumbar. We're trying to get it from here up. So hands go behind the head, turn towards the front knee, and come back to center. Turn towards the front knee and come back to center. It's really normal to feel a pull going through your hip flexor or your quad. The next exercise is a glute bridge. You're going to lay on your back. You can really play around with your foot position here. We generally have people a little bit wider than shoulder width apart, driving their knees out. So set up here. Ribs are down. You're going to drive your heels into the mat and come up and squeeze your butt at the top. Hold it for a second and come back down. Come up, squeeze at the top, and come back down. And that's a glute bridge. The next exercise is a clam or a clamshell. You're going to assume kind of a fetal position. You want to round your low back just a little bit. Stack your feet and your knees on top of each other. You're going to drive your feet together and open your knees. You really want to initiate this movement with your glute. And it's important that you don't try to open up too high, because again, you're not getting your mobility from the proper place. So kind of use this hand to lock the hip down, drive your feet together, and open your knees. And that's a clamshell. The next exercise we call shoulder blade retraction. It comes from the exercise dynamic Blackburn, but we found a lot of our clients struggled to do the whole movement. So I'll show you shoulder blade retraction first and then a dynamic Blackburn. Shoulder blade retraction, you're going to be laying on your stomach. Your arms are going to be down by your side. I generally just support my forehead on the mat because you don't want to have your head kind of thrown back in that position. Simply, you're pulling your shoulder blades back and down, letting your scapula glide over your rib cage. It doesn't look like much, but people seem to have a really hard time with that. People aren't used to the scapula gliding over the rib cage like it's supposed to. And again, that's a more simplified version of the dynamic Blackburn, which looks like this. A couple of important things there. You really want to squeeze your shoulder blades together. When you come around, you end with your thumbs up at the top. Hold it for a second, and then come back around. The last exercise that I'm going to do is a quadruped extension rotation. There are a couple different positions that you can use here. Again, quadruped, so hands are underneath the shoulders and knees are underneath the hips. The hand's going to go behind the head or behind the ear. I'm going to be locking down from here down, trying to stabilize my lumbar, and I'll be opening up through my thoracic spine. So here, hand goes behind the ear. Going to rotate towards the opposite knee, and then open up towards the ceiling and look at the elbow. It's really important here not to collapse in the middle and not to crunch to the side. So keep all this really tight. Go towards your opposite knee. Open up towards the ceiling. You can also perform this from a rock back position. So from here, this blocks more rotation from the lumbar spine. So here, opposite knee, open up towards the ceiling. And some people even like to do it from their forearm. It kind of depends on how long your arms are. Some people's elbow will kind of get stuck there. So you can perform it from whichever position you like, and that's quadruped extension rotation.